whatever happens to fit your business. That's selling. Selling is moving a deal forward, and you move it forward to the point where somebody says yes or no. It's that basic. So let's take a look at a regular company who's trying to figure out how to grow their business, and they say, I want an extra $1 million in revenue this year, and I believe the best way to do that is hire another salesperson. And as we go through this, we're going to identify what that cost of selling is for them and how that either enhances or inhibits their ability to actually accomplish. Remember, I said we want to measure outcomes. The real outcome is the $1 million in additional revenue. So we're going to take a look at how this actually shakes out in real life. Now, the one piece of information that you don't have that you need to determine this is if selling is moving the deal forward, we need to understand how many hours in a week salespeople typically do that. So we're going to come to that in just a second, but that's the last piece we need to actually do this work. So we start out, we have this quota of $1 million. That's the outcome that we really care about. Everything else, we really don't care how we get to that outcome, but we've decided our best option is a new salesperson. Their base salary is that $75,000 there in yellow. Below that number is if they hit their, or let's be positive, when they hit their quota of $1 million, we're going to give them a bonus of 50% of their base, or $37,500. And standard business issues are they have some travel and some entertainment, and we're estimating that travel and entertainment's 20% of their base, 20% of the $75,000. And there's some support that we have to give them, whether it's clerical or administration or finance or engineering. So there's a cost to that. And then there's fringe benefits, whether that's insurance or taxes or whatever it happens to be. So this human being that's going to get us the outcome we want of $1 million is going to cost us, when they hit quota, $150,000, or 15% of the million. Now 15 is really important because as we diagnose things, we may find there's another way to get that million, and we want to be able to compare. When I said leverage, so if we could find a way to get the million and that was not 15% but was 7.5%, that would be a more leveraged way to approach the $1 million outcome than a salesperson. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now the question becomes, how many hours in a week do salespeople actually sell? We've learned over the last 25 years that most salespeople work about 50 hours. So this vision that salespeople sit around and play golf or drink coffee is probably a faulty myth left over from the last century. Salespeople typically work really hard, and 50 hours is pretty normal. Now, we've learned that the best case, the best practice we've ever seen is some companies, and Johnson & Johnson happens to be one of them, we've seen them get their sales team to be able to sell 10 hours in 1 week. So they work 50, they sell 10. Now we've studied many other companies, and of all those other companies we've studied, the normal is 1 hour per week. So just think about the difference, the amount of chaos that goes on to take what could be 10 and get it down to 1. What do we have to do to get in their way that much that people who are really capable of selling 10 or more are actually only selling 1? Now, if you jump down to the next set of numbers where we say hours per week selling, and we see Johnson & Johnson's 10, so their cost per sales hour is really total number of hours divided into the 150,000, and what we find out is they cost $312.50. But the average company, probably yours, remember our stage 1 through 5, that stage 1 company, their normal level of selling is 1 hour per week. And so they're going to cost you $3,125 an hour to get an hour of selling. Now the scarier part yet is the next set of numbers down below, where we say if we really sell 10 hours a week and we want to hit $1 million, we want an outcome of $1 million, how many dollars do we have to sell per hour? And at 10, we have to sell $2,083 an hour. And at 1, we've got to sell $20,833 an hour to get to our outcome of $1 million. There aren't a lot of salespeople that good where they have that qualified a customer every time that will produce $20,833.33 an hour for every hour they sell. So when we create an environment that says the outcome I want's $1 million, but I've got an environment where they only sell 1 hour a week, and they have to sell $20,833 in that 1 hour in order to get the outcome I want, we've created a situation that probably is not going to work. Do people hit it? Of course. Somebody gets lucky. Somebody has the right territory, or they have just the right opportunity. But it isn't a system that you can expect to repeat over a long period of time. So let's ask the next logical question. Since selling is typically the largest cost in reducing or in the revenue process, imagine what we might be able to do if we wanted to reduce that cost per sales hour to get closer to that Johnson & Johnson number instead of what the normal stage 1 company looks like, which is, over $3,000 an hour is the cost of selling, and they got to sell over 20,000, almost 21,000 an hour to hit quota. We're not going to get our outcome. So what can we do to change it? Well, most salespeople spend huge amounts of time doing things like cold calling or networking or suspect hunting or whatever you want to call it that says, I have no good prospects to talk to. I have to go do something to find good prospects, and this is what I'm doing. I belong to the chamber or whatever. So one of the first things we can do is figure out, are there ways we can bring to salespeople reasonable suspects that are worth their time that they can convert into prospects. Get clear in your mind the difference between suspects and prospects. Suspects are people that maybe someday kind of might want to buy something from you. Prospects are people who have the problem you solve. They need it solved now. They have money, and they're willing to talk to you about you solving it for them. So how do we bring more of those people to the sales team so the sales team can then actually spend their time moving deals forward instead of dialing for dollars, networking to hope to find somebody to talk to, or other activities that don't necessarily produce the outcomes you want. That's a typical first place to start. The second place is start to analyze what salespeople are doing, because frequently we ask them to do all kinds of things that, they're important, they're interesting, we need somebody to do, but they're not selling. Whether that's customer support, whether that's develop some marketing material. Let's look at the sales team and see exactly what they're doing so we can figure out if some of that can be moved to a person who doesn't cost $3,000 an hour to get that done. One of the things we realize is that when the cost of selling hours $3,000, there are other ways to get some of those projects done. So what's your homework? Your homework is I want you to start keeping a journal on every point of chaos that you encounter. So that chaos comes from where we spend money to compete with ourselves, or we're fighting the science. You've taken a look at sales as an example where we're really spending a lot of money to compete with ourselves. We're paying salespeople a whole lot of money to do things that are not selling. So that's a terrible waste of our money. And we may well be fighting the science in that also, but we're certainly doing that. So start keeping a journal and identifying where you're finding those things in your day-to-day activity. The second thing is, you've just seen the formula for figuring out cost per sales hour. And that formula you just saw is actually pretty conservative. In many companies, the cost is much higher than $3,000 an hour. Occasionally, it's as low as $2,000 an hour, but any of those numbers are too big. Figure out what the cost per sales hour in your particular situation is, and then design a way to start to reduce that. What could you do that over the next 12 months would actually reduce that cost per sales hour? Personally, every place I ever worked, when I worked for other people, I kept track of my time in 15-minute increments. And what I learned was that even if I worked 60 hours a week and I was very intentional about avoiding things that the company thought I should do that I knew were not moving deals forward, I could never get to 20 hours a week of selling. Typically, about the best I could get to was 15. And I was very successful in those situations, but I was constantly fighting my own company to get to 15. So take a look, figure out, what your cost of sales hour is approximately, and then figure out what's getting in the way that's making it so high, and what you can do to start to reduce it over the next 12 months. So keep the feedback coming. I really appreciate what you've been sending me. It's helping me create the material that we're going to cover. And do your homework, because when you do this homework, it's going to really set you up for what we're going to do next. So I'm looking forward to that, and you'll be having a new video coming from me real soon. Thanks.